All right, and welcome back to the Afterthoughts podcast, a CNC podcast. Today, we are going to be talking to our most recent boot of Prometheus, David. David, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about yourself, Casey?
I'm doing well. As we can see, you're all decked out in your 80s outfit. I really like it. You got a little Powerpuff Girls, so that's like 90s, but all in all, I love everything. So obviously this time is given to you to talk about anything and everything you want to, your game, how you appeared in the edit, what you might have said, beef, whatever, and even what people said about you in the podcast. So pretty much whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Casey. Thank you very much for having me here today. So yeah, I kind of just want to talk about just the game in general, like kind of where I think things kind of started going wrong a little bit. I think during day one, at least at one point, I mentioned that I wanted to work with Sammy. Sammy's boot really was kind of devastating for me personally because I kind of saw, okay, here's where I'm kind of being compromised a little bit. In my mind, it was always Caro, me, and Zach. I come to find out afterwards that probably wasn't the case, and they probably weren't going to take me to the end. But that was my best bet at making it to the end at that time. But it was originally us three, and we were at one point discussing who we wanted to bring in as our fourth. Little did I know, Carol had already kind of set herself up to, having that all girls alliance. And so that's why we brought Lauren in. But quite personally, I kind of wanted to fight for Sammy, it'd be me, Sammy, Carol, and Zach. So her boot was kind of like the start of kind of where I think, it's just like I should have fought a little bit harder for that one. But I think what I really want to talk about is pre-merge, right?
Okay, okay.
where all the drama really ensued. That's what everyone wants to hear, I think. Quite personally, I wanted to work with Zach, just because he was like the only other, LGBT member in our tribe, I think, right? There wasn't any other LGBT members that were guys and openly
Just
gay. So
just you and Zach, yeah.
yeah. So I think that's kind of where I found that connection with him. He was kind of young and he was gay, and so I kind of latched onto that. I tend to latch onto that. Um, and he did a pretty good job of convincing me, that we were going to be working together. I think at one point, even in the edit, you have, the fact that I'd made like a final two deal with him, and he was the only person I'd ever done that with. I didn't even plan on doing that with Caro, but Caro is really where kind of things kind of started going kind of weird when she started kind of freaking out and saying, well, I don't know, I think something different's going to happen, something different. When we were at before tribal, when we were discussing, that's called tribal, right? Sorry, I'm kind of getting the words.
I mean, you're fine. We all know, but it's the temple. But
The
yeah.
temple, right? Okay, so we went to temple. No, temple's where you vote someone out. Tribal is where you discuss. No.
Oh, your tribe life, right?
Tribe life.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's your tribe life, yeah. But I guess that's the thing. You're not a survivor watcher, right? No. Okay. So yeah, the phases go tribe life, challenge grounds, tribe life, the temple. But anyway, go ahead.
No, well, anyway, so like when we were discussing everything, like Carol kind of started freaking out. And I think Carol kind of misinterpreted me a little bit when she was talking about, well, I just don't know, how things are going to go. And I was like, well, I mean, there's only one way things could go. It's, we're in a group chat with, me, you, Lauren and Zach. The only other option is Caitlin. No, in my mind, that's what I'm thinking. Is that not the case? And so Zach even at one point says that since, I had immunity, like I was all up in La La Land. It wasn't the fact that I was in La La Land. It's just that I had put my trust in these people. And it's just like, sometimes I kind of like to say that I'm loyal to a fault, and that's just me in real life. Like I put all my trust in people, and I will have so much faith in you until you prove to me otherwise. And so I kind of saw a correlation of how I am in like real life, or direct correlation actually, how I am in real life and in the game, because I tend to blow up like that whenever, someone lies or deceives me like that. It's just like, for me at that point, you're just done, like I don't want to hear anything else, because I trusted you, But I do respect Carol's gameplay, like I respect that she put herself in a very good position. But I personally would never play like that, because it's just like, when I am loyal to you, I'm loyal to you, and I'm going to take you. So that was very interesting. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
So, I'd have to say, like, I think in Kara's situation, she was once again, I've said this on the podcast previously, she was in the best situation or position in the tribe. I think what she did was a viable move. I think if anything, and the funny thing is that what she did to you wasn't even that treacherous compared to what I've seen in other games. Like that is like kind of like baby treacherous. Because I think at the end of the day, while Caro did initially like you and Zach, and that was kind of her original three, for her, she hadn't officially figured out where to go. But I think maybe the mistake on her part was she was the one that was resistant to letting you in on the vote, whereas Lauren did want to let you in on the vote. I think if anything, that might have been the mistake. But I mean, like I said, I think in terms of like, playing that kind of game, she is playing a good game. But like I said, that's very like little compared to what I've seen in other games where like you'll have like just mass amount of people like I can't even explain it without like direct situations. But yeah,
Oh yeah.
that's kind of my thoughts on the situation.
Yeah, no, and I think, and it was very like her concerns were very, very valid because I had the same concerns, and you saw it in one of my confessionals, sorry, where like we started kind of distrusting Zach a little bit, when he said that he was like the rat and stuff like that. And so I, did have a little bit of distrust in Zach, but in my opinion, I'm like, I think you saw in one of my previous confessionals where it's just like, I had said that Zach won a lot of games, and that means one of two things. I'm either taking you out or I'm either working with you. And I said, well, Zach, looks like we're going to be working together. And so I had already committed to that. So even if I did distrust him, I was going to commit to taking him to the end, while on the side, maybe also trying to get someone else, and so that for me was Kyle. It had always been Kyle. You don't hear me talk a lot about Kyle, on day one, but it had always been that in the back of my mind. During one of the tribals, you had asked us a question, it's going to be 4 against 5 going into merge. Do you think you can convince someone? And, all of us very confidently said that we felt like we could get someone to flip. And in my opinion, or in my mind, that was always Kyle. Kyle was going to be the person that I was going to get in with and just, bring him over. So in terms of gameplay, in terms of how I wish things would have turned out, Caro just telling me, she might have been able to even convince me to like, hey, like these are the people that I'm working with. Let's get Zach out. I don't really trust him. But of course, in games like this, you only have so much time to work with, and your decisions have to be like that. So I never hold that against Caro, but I do wish you would have told me though. But it was very. I'm sorry. What?
Oh no, good.
It was very interesting watching this particular episode. And just touchy subjects has never been my favorite. I always hate this challenge. But it was just very interesting just to kind of see where like everyone lied, like going into the merge, especially with like Lauren being voted like most annoying, and also, what was it most likely to? No, she wasn't most likely to win. She was
the $250 one.
The $250 one. I thought it was trustworthy.
No, trustworthy was Kyle and Anna, I believe.
Yeah, it was just a lot of like interesting to see like where people's minds were at. Colin, I love you, Colin, by the way. I know you're eventually going to watch this. I've actually got an opportunity to meet Colin in real life. I think he's amazing. But I'm only speaking from the game perspective. That particular day, after, I think it was like the day that day one ended, we had those 16 hours to talk. And so going into that, I was scrambling. I was scrambling like nobody's business. My initial thought was to create an all guys alliance, because I thought, okay, if it's me, Andrew, Kyle, Colin, and Joe, if I can get, a 5-person alliance with all guys, I can, turn, but I didn't know if they were good with Anna or not. So I did send a message to Colin asking him who he was good with. And he did tell me that he was good with Anna. But at the time I was doing something like, I was out and about like I always am. I was out and about, and that particular night I didn't have any signal, at all whatsoever. So after he did tell me who he was good with. He's like, so who are you good with? I was like, I'll tell you, but I don't have time right now because I was, talking with people and I just honestly didn't have signal. Like at one point that night, I was with some friends. And at one point, my friends went somewhere else and I had lost my friends and I had absolutely zero signal. So I had to ask, one of my friends or someone else that I knew if I could borrow their phone so I could talk to my friends. That's how much signal I didn't have, right? But I did manage to get a good conversation with Kyle that night. So I think I put myself in a pretty good position with Kyle that night. But I think Colin was kind of a reason, or that interaction with Kyle was one of the reasons why, that distrust built, and since he was good with Anna and Andrew, of course they were going to vote with him. So I kind of screwed up there. Oops. But I love Colin. Colin's awesome. He's a great guy. So like my strategy, like going into this game really was to kind of try to lay as low as possible. I don't think I succeeded at that. But that was my initial plan because I tend to come in really strong. I tend to try to take over and I'm kind of a Lauren in a way. I kind of try to come in, take over, like build as many social bonds as I possibly can, and then just like kill at the comp so that no one can, no one stands in my way, get immunity. And it wasn't until, going into, the merge that I was just like, okay, I think I actually need to win this one. And it was that knowledge of whatever.
The knowledge of Apollo was the one right before the merge. Yeah, the one that you did win.
Yeah. And I remember during that tiebreaker, after touchy subjects during that tiebreaker between Kyle and who was it, Colin, you were asking the questions like, hey, what was the first ever challenge? And I was like, oh God, if I had this one, I'd be able to do it, because I actually took notes. Like every single thing I took notes. I don't think, people noticed that, but I was taking notes. So people thinking that I wasn't as invested in this game as I really was, like I had just planned poorly. Like I planned 3 appointments actually, getting my car, my grooming, and my haircut the day of, a game. I'd never played a mini before. So like, I didn't know what the format looked like or anything like that. But, I'm just a proponent or a believer of if I'm going to commit to something, I'm going to go ahead and commit to it, all the way. Some might argue that wasn't all the way, but it was all the way that I could at that very moment, given my circumstances,
Yeah.
So, I was very invested in the game and I actually, did want to succeed in this game as much as I could. Unfortunately, things turned out the way that they did, but I got some really good friends out of it. I still talk to Kyle to this day, but I think you've done a really good job at the editing portion for everyone's edit. I think you've done a really good job of hitting everyone and the afterthoughts, giving everyone some spotlight or some insight into the gameplay. I think Caitlin's someone to look out for. I actually did develop a pretty good relationship with Caitlin pretty early on because we're both from Dallas, D-Town. What's up? I still haven't met you, Caitlin, by the way, but we'll meet soon. But I think Caitlin has put herself in a really good position. Like, I don't think anyone really talks about her, and she is actually coming through with her strategy. Like, her strategy was that people tend to overlook her, and she was going to use that to her advantage. And I think she's doing just that, and she's killing it. Like, no one really mentions Caitlin, and I think that's played very much into her advantage. She knows it, and I love that she knows it. Like, I'm rooting for her. That's who I'm really rooting for right now.
All right. Sounds good. And yeah, also just to comment one thing. So yeah, for you, yes, I appreciate you showing up that day. And despite you running around, I think I said on the last podcast too, like you still were very social with everyone. You're making all the connections. So yeah, you were still pretty, invested in the game. And I do appreciate that because as we obviously know, 3 of the people did not show up the day, of it. So, I mean, I still appreciate that. We all love you. I mean, hopefully everyone, continues to talk, from the future, on out. And hopefully you get to meet Caitlin one day, because you do say a couple times throughout the show, we're gonna meet up. We're gonna go to Pride Night tonight, because at the time it was in June. So, but yeah, hopefully you get the chance to do that. But before we conclude things, any last thoughts? Any final thoughts?
No, I just want to say thank you very much, Casey. I think you've done a phenomenal job with all of this. You have been killing it from this, the musical soundtracks that you hear underneath, like the editing, like just how everything, the flow of everything is just fantastic. So I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for this opportunity to like even come in here and speak or even play the game. Like I think all of us, and I can speak for myself and the other people on this, cast, that we had a really fun time playing it, and it's even been even more fun, reliving it. For some of us, it hasn't been fun reliving it. This particular episode just kind of brought back all those memories, but regardless, I still love these people. So thank you very much, Casey, for having me on here and on the cast. So yeah, and so I also wanted to hit on the fact that at one point I did go over into that other room because I was talking to Kyle, and I went over into the other room and I interrupted that little girl, meetup between Anna, Lauren, and Caro. But I was actually going in there to actually speak to Caro and Lauren because I knew that if I didn't stick with the original Titans, then I was going to be screwed. So I was going to try to make amends and let them know that we could still work with Kyle, or I can get Kyle to flip. But Caro ended up leaving, and I saw Anna make, a face as soon as I came in. So I was just like, you know what? I'm not even going to bother. So I really do feel like that might have been also another cause of,
All right. Well, yes, once again, thank you for coming on. Thank you for playing. And thank you for everyone who is tuned in. If you can like, comment, and subscribe, that'd be greatly appreciated. And on that note, have a good night.